Hello. Welcome to a summary of last Sunday's message. As humans, need precedes provision. Your car breaks down and you need $1,000. And then you have to come up with or pray for provision to deal with the need. You go to a doctor, you get a diagnosis of an illness that you didn't know you had, and now you need the provision of healing. That's the way we operate. That's the way we think. But as Isaiah 55:8-9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." For us, need precedes provision. For God, provision exists even before there is a need, before we realize there's a need. So need is not a threat. Yet, whenever we discover a need, we often are fearful, worry, or threatened because we're concerned that maybe the need won't be met. But from God's point of view, need is an opportunity to receive God's provision. And that's the way we should think as well. Genesis chapter 22, beginning with verse 1. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. "Abraham," God called. "Yes," he replied. "Here I am." "Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you." The next morning, Abraham got up early. He didn't wait a week. The next morning, he got up early. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped wood for a fire, for a burnt offering, and set out for the place that God had told him about. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. "Stay here with the donkey," Abraham told his servants. "The boy and I will travel a little further. We will worship there, and then we will come right back." So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he himself carried the fire and the knife. The 2 of them walked on together. Can you imagine the intensity of this long journey? Can you imagine what was going on in the hearts and minds of these 2 real people? They weren't actors. This wasn't a play. Isaac turned to Abraham and said, "Father?" "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "We have the fire and the wood," the boy said, "but where is the sheep for the burnt offering?" "God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son," Abraham answered, and they both walked on together. See, the faith of Abraham is being tested, and at this particular moment, he's doing very well. The need for God to intervene was more evident with every step. God needed to come up with some kind of substitute for Isaac in a hurry. Or if Abraham went through with this, God was going to have to raise the dead. When they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. He tied up his son, Isaac, and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. Look at this. This is full obedience and full faith. He had no self-imposed limit on his obedience. So many times it's like we decide we're going to obey God. We're going to take this chance, but we set a limit. We begin very well believing him, but if he doesn't come through as quickly as we think that he should, we stop. When the pressure really begins to build, we don't hang on. And the truth is that anything less than full obedience isn't really obedience. Abraham believed that God was going to provide a sacrifice, a substitute at the last moment, or else he would raise him from the dead. That's what he believed. But let's look at what he did not know while he was believing. He didn't know that while they were coming up one side of the mountain, that there was a ram coming up the other side of the mountain. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Yes," Abraham replied, "here I am." "Don't lay a hand on the boy," the angel said. "Do not hurt him in any way. For now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son." Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh, which means the Lord will provide. To this day, people still use that name as a proverb. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. Yahweh Yireh. Yahweh, the proper name for God, and Yireh actually literally means to see. So the Lord will provide because he sees what is needed before we even know that there is a need. So provision for us is prevision for him. He knows in advance. He sees in advance what we need. And so this ram was born at just the right time to be the right age on this particular day. God created the ram. God created the thicket. God created the horns that got caught in the thicket. God saw in advance what would be needed and had it ready at just the right moment. It had been caught in the thicket long before this. He wouldn't have been there now, but he was where he needed to be at just the right time because God is a provider. So what is it that you need right now? What is it that you are aware of that you lack? God is in charge. Trust Him. You may have just recently come to an awareness of that need or lack, but God has known it forever. So don't look at your need as a threat, but begin to see your need as an opportunity for you to receive God's provision. God bless you, and thank you for listening.